Today, I'm going to talk to you about how osteoporosis, osteopenia have everything to do with your diet and your digestion. It's your medical doctor telling you that. And if you are interested in working with somebody who is going to look for the deviations of normal, finding out where your body is stressed on a digestive level, as well as looking for how to nourish the body, how to help you improve your waste, or removing your elimination of waste, all of that, stay tuned because I'm going to talk to you about that as well. So today's topic, today's whiteboard action is how your osteopenia and osteoporosis is connected to your digestion. And specifically, I'm going to talk to you about 3 reasons why. I'm going to talk to you how this is connected to carbs, how this is connected to fat or lipids, and how this is connected to protein. That's right. Osteoporosis, osteopenia are connected to your 3 macronutrients. Let's talk about how. First up, let's talk about carbohydrates. Did you know that, well, first let me say this. When we're talking about osteoporosis or osteopenia, we're looking at losing bone mass, and primarily calcium and phosphorus and some magnesium make up the skeletal structure. So calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, these are the main players when it comes to skeletal health, specifically calcium, okay? Specifically calcium. 99% approx of your skeletal system is calcium. So that's why I'm using the whole fat, carb, protein, and I'm going to link it back to calcium because that's the key player when it comes to bone health, all right? Now, let's get into this. When it comes to carbohydrates, when your body has to digest sugar, let's talk about refined sugar. To digest refined sugar, you're actually going to lose calcium. And the reason for that is you have a ratio of calcium to phosphorus. And it's about 2.5 to 1. You have about 2.5 calcium to 1 phosphorus. And when your body needs to digest refined sugar, it needs to make energy to do that, required through ATP, all right, adenosine triphosphate. So when your body is digesting sugar, specifically refined sugar, it needs phosphorus. And when you have to utilize phosphorus, you're going to pull out calcium as well. So let's say we have refined sugar. You have to digest it, which requires energy, which is a loss of phosphorus, which is also a loss of calcium. So now that 2.5 to 1 ratio is altered, all right? So the body always has to try to keep that in balance. And it will do that by losing, you're going to dump calcium. When you eat refined sugar, when you eat candy, sweets, things like that, refined flour, stuff of this nature, that's very acidic causing, you're going to lose calcium with that, and you're also going to lose your alkaline minerals as well. So the first way that you become osteoporosis that we're talking about today is by eating refined sugar. Essentially, you're going to be losing phosphorus, thereby losing calcium as well, that vital mineral necessary for bone health. And by the way, the medical model is broken. They want to give you drugs like Boniva and things of this nature, which I don't think Boniva is even around anymore. But they want to give you drugs that mess with your osteoblast versus osteoclast cells. Osteoclasts, fancy word for bones that are dead, right? Degraded bone cells. Osteoblasts, these are good, healthy new bone cells. So what we want to be doing is looking at ways to improve our osteoblasts, not hang on to old bone cells or osteoclasts. Drugs like Boniva and such, they look like you're doing better on your bone scans because your body is not giving up or getting rid of or recycling, if you will, the osteoclasts. So it looks like your bone health is improving, but what it really is showing you is that you have more osteoclasts. Who wants old bone cells? You want new bone cells. So that's one thing I want to point out to you. The next thing I want to mention to you is your medical doctor who's talking to you about your osteopenia or osteoporosis, are they ever mentioning how this is coming from your digestion? Probably not. So we just covered the first macro, carbohydrates, and how it can lead to calcium loss, or over long periods of time could lead into osteopenia and then even worse, osteoporosis, because you lose phosphorus, thereby you lose calcium. There's that ratio that has to be in place. Let's turn this around and now let's talk about how fats or lipids can lead to calcium loss. So when it comes to fats or lipids, if you have unemulsified fats are no good. Okay? So what that means is during the digestive process, your fats and lipids need to be degreased, if you will. They need to be prepped for proper digestion or solubility inside the body. So one of the main heavy hitters in doing that is stomach acid in your bile, specifically your bile. But if you have deficient stomach acid, then you're not going to have proper amount of bile flow, and it's that bile that starts the process of emulsifying the fats and lipids. But if that's not happening, if you have unemulsified fats, that's what's going to happen with the calcium loss, because calcium sticks to unemulsified fats. Let me say that again. If you have degraded or deficient stomach acid, you're not going to have proper bile flow. The bile is not going to start to begin that process, that two-step process of digesting fats to make them water soluble. The digestion of fats is very taxing on the human body. And bile, one of the components to bile, or one of the jobs or functions of bile, is to wipe away that outer layer, if you will, to begin the process of digesting or emulsifying fats. Unemulsified fats, calcium sticks to it, it binds to it, and then you excrete it. So now, instead of that calcium being properly used in your body, or going to your bones in this case, since we're talking about osteopenia osteoporosis, now you're going to excrete it in your stool. You just lost calcium because you didn't properly digest your fat. And then people who have had a gallbladder removal or cholecystectomy, you're more in danger, if you will, of having osteopenia osteoporosis for that saponification or non-emulsified or unemulsified fat. Now let's talk about the final macro, which is protein, and how this relates to osteopenia osteoporosis. When it comes to protein, okay, you can consume all the citrical you want. you can consume all that you want. That's not going to increase your calcium. It's not going to do it, because 50 to 55% of calcium must bind to protein to be absorbed. Okay, 50 to 55% of your calcium must bind to your protein to be absorbed. What this then means is, one, if you are not eating enough protein, which I can say this until I'm blue in the face, people don't listen. And here's the thing. I'll tell people you need to be eating at least 60 grams of protein, closer to 80 if you're having more issues. People were like, oh, I eat a lot of protein. Here's something for you when you visit your health professional. When a doctor asks you a specific question like, how much water do you drink? Don't say a lot. When someone says, or your medical professional says, or health professional says, how much protein are you consuming? Oh, a lot. Don't say a lot. Answer the question with specificity, and you're going to be able to help your doctor help you even more. So just because you think you are eating a lot of protein doesn't mean you are. So one, if you are not eating enough protein, you are not going to get that calcium. So when you don't have enough protein, now you are going to absolutely not have enough calcium. Protein and calcium are like this. 50 to 55% of calcium attaches onto protein in order to get into the body and the skeletal system. Next, if you aren't effectively digesting protein or carbs or fats or lipids like we talked about there, then that also is going to affect your utilization of calcium within the body. Here's the thing. Of all minerals, calcium is plentiful. It's abundant. There are copious amounts of calcium in all foods, specifically green leafy vegetables, not dairy products. We talked about that calcium-phosphorus ratio earlier. This is why you don't get good bone health from drinking dairy products. You actually lose calcium because there's a lot of phosphorus in dairy products. Okay, it's completely a joke. The milk industry has done a great job at marketing to the American public with that milk mustache, thinking that you're going to get good bone health from calcium or from dairy. All right, the milk industry thinks that you're going to get a lot of calcium from dairy. I'm not saying not to have dairy. I think dairy is great if it's organic and high fat as a fat protein source. Okay, I'm not telling you not to have dairy unless you have a known issue and you have milk products. But to think that you're getting a lot of calcium from your dairy is just not so, because of that calcium 2.5 to 1 phosphorus ratio. So in summary, when your doctor is talking to you about you having a problem with your calcium or with your osteopenia or your osteoporosis, they need to start talking to you about diet, about what's going on with digestion. Like I just outlined to you, 3 easy ways how it's connected, osteoporosis, osteopenia, to to carbohydrates. Calcium loss is connected to carbohydrates. Calcium loss is connected to fats and lipids. Calcium loss is connected to not eating enough and or digesting your proteins or your fats or your carbs. I hope that that really resonates with you. And if you are somebody that wants a solution to your osteopenia or your osteoporosis, work with doctors like me who are functional medicine, who are looking at digestion or who are looking at the gut, and understand that food is the real medicine. Look at doctors who are going to try to find out, where are your deviations from normal? Where are your deviations from normal? That's where we're looking at bringing you back to homeostasis or that body's natural healing rhythm. And by the way, what you really want to be looking for is how healthy is your extracellular fluid. Your cells can only be as healthy as that liquid that they are swimming around in, if you will. That's your extracellular fluid. And so if doctors aren't looking at that, they're missing the magical piece of the puzzle, because that's how you nourish the body, is by giving it what it needs. But before we even talk about giving the body what it needs, there needs to be an effective way to find out, what does the body need? What are your sources of stress? Where are your deviations from normal? How do we help nourish the body? How do we help improve waste elimination? How do we help bring you back into homeostasis? Do you think prescription drugs do any of that? They don't. Okay? Prescription drugs are effective at turning off enzymatic processes, which is why some may get a benefit with a symptomatic relief somewhere. Health comes from within. These are nothing more, osteoporosis, osteopenia, are nothing more than digestive issues, as I have just laid out here today. If you are interested in working with me, go to gutprotocol.com, or you can go to longdistancedoc.com to set up a consultation. I work with anybody all over the world, so this is my specialty, is working on people with Crohn's, colitis, whether it's osteoporosis, heartburn, whatever the case is, it's the same. What are their sources of stress? What are their deviations from normal? This is what my testing does in Gut Protocol. How do I help nourish their body based on their test results? How do I help them eliminate waste better as a result? How do I help them digest carbs, fats, and proteins like we talked about today? That's what I do all day long. I hope that you've enjoyed this.